All right. Well, we're going to have an interesting show tonight. We're going to try something a little bit different, but it's going to be interesting. No matter what, it's going to be interesting. All right, so I'm live. No, there we go. All right, so it did work. Hey, how you doing, Shadow?
All right, man. How are you?
All right, I'm going to call you just Shadow. Is that all right?
Yeah, perfect.
I like to be short and sweet as far as the shortcuts when you're talking to somebody's name. All right, here's our other guests, Peter and Maggie, and they're in northeast corner. Can you guys hear me? Oh, they get their mic. Oh, there they are.
Yes, we can. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Oh my gosh,
Awesome.
nice and loud.
Is it
All
too
right,
loud?
yeah.
Should I
All
lower that
right,
a little bit?
we have another guest here. I call him Shadow. That's his name on the screen. So anyway, you can see him though. He's a shadow. You can see.
We can. Nice to meet you, Shadow.
Nice to meet you.
All right. I might bring in another guest if you want. We're gonna have some fun and bring in some extra people. That's all right. We'll just have fun talking with everybody. All right.
Sure, why not? How do I get to the point where I can chat with everyone in the studio and see the chat page? Do I just
On
go
the comment where it says comment with everyone or leave a comment in the chat.
I found it. Okay, perfect.
Okay. On the bottom, on your laptop, it should be. Um, yeah, you got you got the listing of the private and comments, and then there's a comment there. All right, I'm gonna leave that link for my friend Star and let her join us. And I've known Star a long time, and she's a good friend. She'll be joining us. Hi, Julie, and hi, Bobby, and hi to Marco if Marco is here. Hi, Star. If you're still here, come on and join the panel if you want.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It says comments. I can see where everybody's writing, but I'm not sure how to type on that. It's not giving me a box.
Oh, it doesn't give you a box. Okay, I don't know how to do that. What's the topic tonight? I don't know, guys. What do you think? Maybe if you can, Maggie, if you can get into the YouTube channel, like go to your phone. I don't know if you can do both at the same with the bandwidth or anything, but try it. And if it cuts you off, just come back and we'll figure it out. Check. No, it's not the cables. Bobby always says, check your connections.
Okay.
Okay. Julie says if you're in the studio in StreamYard as a guest, you don't see the chat bar. So what you could do is you can either open a secondary window on your computer, which then you'd have to mute the sound on the YouTube window though. So like if you go to YouTube and you get my channel, then you mute the sound, but then you can see the chat and you can comment in the chat. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. I'm going to bring it up under Pete's phone and see if we can't do it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just make sure that you mute the sound on that window when you have it. That way they don't have the two sounds bouncing back and forth, and we're all getting dizzy, from it.
We wouldn't do that to you.
Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with anything like that. All right. Yeah, so we were having some fun doing the test on this earlier, and everything worked fine. And then I didn't know that the chat was an issue, but anyway, yeah,
Yeah, that'd be private chat. Private chat I could type, it just won't in the comments. So that's okay.
That is weird. Yeah, but you can definitely if you have a big enough screen, 15.6, which is the standard screen size, you should be able to do a split screen window. So the one window will have this window that you're on. The other window will have the YouTube channel, which would be my channel. Okay.
Actually, I have it on Pete's phone, and I just put his sound all the way down. So if we need to write anything, we can do it that way. I think that.
Oh, there you go.
Easier.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. Good deal. And then you can see the chat. You can comment. You can answer questions if you have, or if you have a thought you wanted to throw in the chat. Stir the pot a little bit. Put it in there, and we'll do it that way. All right. Good deal. So what do you think? Julie asked a very good question. What is the topic tonight? What is your favorite flavor of topics?
Did you want to go over our background at all? I know that there were some people.
Yeah, you can. You
and I were on the phone, and then
you can share a little bit. We got 2 hours if you can stay up late. And if you can't stay up late, that's fine. I don't mind. If you need to go early, go ahead. If you start falling asleep and you're snoring on the microphone, I'll make fun of you. But, yeah.
We'll definitely commit to the hour, and we'll see how it goes after that. I do have a commitment early tomorrow morning, as we talked about earlier, but we'll see how it goes.
All right, good deal.
Peter was telling me he's a little tired earlier, so a lot of it's going to depend on him. But we'll do the hour.
We'll check it out, and we'll go for a little bit. So you got a little bit of time. Go ahead and share your what you do and where you're from, and where you're from, what you do, whatever, and how you got into this mess.
The mess, exactly. The mess we're in today, right?
Yeah.
So we were Peter and I were both on other network he was on for at least 9 years. I was on for 5, and we parted ways with the network just because there were some, let's just call it creative differences. And so I don't know if anybody else has heard of Peter that's in the chat room, but he's pretty well known on YouTube, and his old radio show did really, really well, and so did mine. And then we kind of came together and we started doing 2 shows together. And he's got a book, and the name of the book is
Letters to Earth, You Can Survive Armageddon.
Letters to Earth, You Can Survive Armageddon. So, and that's done pretty well also. For myself, I was born gifted, and I really wasn't sure, what that meant when I was little, but I used to see a lot of stuff in the dark as a young child. And, I'd hear things, see things. I can hear, see, smell, taste, feel. And you were talking earlier about telekinesis. I do have some abilities with that. I can do like little stuff. I can sometimes change the weather, move clouds, make it rain or stop, things like that. I can bend spoons on occasion. I haven't done that in a while. It was kind of a neat trick when I was a kid. But basically, my family knew, because I have on both sides of my family, my grandmother and my great-grandmother, very much so. And then my great-grandmother on the other side were all born gifted. So it carried down through the generations. And when I was a kid, I really didn't know, but my family knew, because they knew my family's history. So, if I tell them something, like don't go down that road, or, don't do this today, or wait a day to do that, they would always listen to me. And essentially, because my parents, I didn't tell you this earlier, but my parents, I was raised Roman Catholic, right? And I was in a Catholic school. And my parents told me, don't ever tell anybody outside the house, because you're going to be ostracized, right?
You did it now.
Yep. So I was told to keep everything quiet, and they would just listen to what I had to say. And I had a great deal of premonition. And so I would tell them things that were going to happen. I always knew when someone in my family was sick that I was close to, or was going to pass. And I would see the actual circumstances around that, family members that were sick. Like, for instance, my cousin had to have 5 stents put in on an emergency surgery. I called my other cousin that day, and I said, hey, look, what's going on with our other cousin? And I said, I see him having surgery with his heart. And she said, yeah, well, we got a phone call. He's in right now, and they're putting 5 stents in, just stuff like that, And a lot of it I just kept through the family and didn't tell any about it until I was in my mid-30s. And then my cousin says to me, you really need to be doing this. You got to do something with this. So I did start to do the shows and circuits and things like that, and became very well recognized in my area and then internationally. And so as a result of that, as everybody can imagine, there's a lot of jealousy out there. There are a lot of people that, either don't understand these things or don't believe in them, or, just maybe have a problem with it in general. Or, I was doing really good at shows and there were a lot of people that were jealous. And so I had to have some kickback, and I was getting some negative energy thrown at me, and I'm like, okay, so now we want to play, right? So I learned to take care of myself and defend myself, and took some classes, things like that. And eventually I became ordained. And when I became ordained, I got into spiritual warfare. The reason that I got ordained is because one day I was doing a house walkthrough, and I hadn't really been doing any ghost investigations or anything at that time, but I felt something. So I'm like, okay, I need to learn how to protect myself. So, and it's not the $45 bubblegum certificate. I actually went through almost a year of intense training and classes and testing and things like that, got my certificate, and I was ordained in deliverance and clearing. And so I started to do that, and I became internationally recognized for that. And like we were talking earlier, some of the things that you see on TV are real, and some of it's BS, and, some of it's made for television and some of it not. And some of the cases that I've had are pretty hairy. I was telling you earlier about the one that I had just before I moved up here. There was a girl that had some issues, and she was staying with some friends. She was homeless, and they sensed there were things getting thrown around the house. They were hearing banging, things like that. And so I went in with one team member, and my friend who she was living with's boyfriend held her down, and my partner held her down, and she was fine with doing the deliverance, but there was just so much inside of her, and it was pretty strong. So it threw both of them off of her. And then it picked up a coffee table with two fingers, and big, heavy, like 100-pound coffee table, and just kind of flicked it across the room. Right. So, cases like that. I used to do events at a theater. We had about 300 people at the events where we do like tours and walkthroughs and things like that. And as my career progressed, it started to skyrocket, and I was going through a low point in my personal life. And as I was going through a point in my personal life that was very troublesome to me, I was in a bad state. I just was feeling like nothing really wanted to go. Nothing was going the way I wanted it to. And I got touched. I don't know how else to say it, but at that point, I was pretty much shown what I could do and what I couldn't do to stay in the realm of keeping myself clear and positive and protected. And, I was shown my gifts opened up at that point. My precognition really, really started to go crazy. Before that, I could only see visions of like my family and people that I'd connected with, or people that I touched, or people that I'd read for. And after that, I started seeing worldwide events. And so that was kind of cool, depending on what it was. At the time, the floods in Louisiana, the floods in New York, different earthquakes, things like that. And so I went with that and tried to deal with everything that I was seeing, which emotionally can be kind of stressful, when you're seeing people dying and you're seeing people suffering. And the way that my gifts work was basically I was put in that place and in that time. So for instance, in Louisiana, I was in the water and I was gasping and struggling for air, and I felt like I was drowning, So depending on the situation, the gifts come differently. When I'm dealing with spirits or something demonic, not only will I see and maybe feel, but I'll smell a lot too, like rotting flesh or something rotten, sulfur smells, depending on the intensity of the demons. So it's kind of morphed basically over the years. And since I've moved off the grid and gotten away from electricity and, just other than this, I don't do a lot with the internet, and things like that. But for the most part, everything kind of cleared out and it even became stronger. Right. So, but when I was touched, I was shown, you can do certain things and you can't, and everybody's got their own belief structure. And I was shown that people, things like Ouija boards and things like that, you don't mess with them. You don't allow anything to channel into your body. That opens you up for possession, or possession. So, yep, tasted it too. I understand that. I'm reading the chat as I'm going. So that's kind of where I'm at now. And I do have classes. I've offered classes for years. I used to do lectures on the circuit as well. And everything was in person. And when COVID shut down, it was like, okay, what do I do now? Right. So, so I've started to develop online classes and Zoom classes and things like that. And basically gearing my business that way so that I can do most everything from the privacy of my home. And will travel 4 cases as needed. But because I've done a lot like in England and Australia and Italy and things like that, obviously some of them you have to do, over the computer. Makes it a little difficult because not too many people are going to front you $4,000 for expenses nowadays, right?
All
So,
right.
and then Peter and I were on the same network for years. We knew each other, and he, like I said, had very, very successful shows. And we got together, and we've been together ever since. And we were doing 2 shows together a week. And he specializes in biblical prophecy, so that's his thing. We talk about a lot what's coming, what's happened, how the Bible relates to what's happening now and what will happen in the future. We do a lot with survivalism. I have a gift of healing. I do have some miracle healings. I can't say I have a lot of them as far as big miracles, but I do have some. And so that's something that's, able to help people. Basically now with COVID and everything that we've been through with COVID, I just feel like so many people are struggling. I feel like so many people are anxious and scared and worried and just need help, right? And the suicide rates have gone through the roof. Our children are suffering. I feel like it's really important at this time that we get back out there and kind of share what we're teaching and share what we believe and be able to help people as much as we can. And that's kind of why we started to, we've been searching for another network, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's kind of Maggie's reading the chat. Most guests don't do that. So I'm trying to, that's why I'm getting distracted if I'm umming and eyeing. That's why, because I'm kind of looking at the chat as I'm talking to you guys. So, but that's basically, where we're at. And so my classes are kind of, most of them are based in how to heal yourself, and how to find out who you are. And, these abilities that we all have them. It's just a matter of what they are. They may be different for every person. You may have strengths and weaknesses, but, I'm here to tell you that the pharma industry is not good for our bodies. So as much as we can do holistically and within ourselves to heal ourselves and help ourselves, and to work internally as networks, right? To work together and share what we know and be able to help people that way. That's really where we need to be in this time. And so that's kind of, like I said, where we're back. And it's spreading a message. But I mean, our shows, like we do recipes, we do some music, we'll do biblical prophecy. We do a lot with current events. Some people may call us conspiracy theorists. I was called a conspiracy theorist 10 years ago, and everything that I conspiracy theorized happened, right? It's coming true. And I think the essence of what we're trying to share and spread with people is that we really are in, whether you believe or not in the Bible, we're in the end times. We're in bad times, and it's a matter of fighting good and evil. I mean, it's truly a battle for our souls, whether you believe in reincarnation, whether you believe in whatever you believe in, we're at war right now. And I think it's really important that we all kind of work together and help each other to get to where we need to be. and to be able to get through these tough times, you know?
Yeah, that's good.
So I
Yeah.
don't know if that helps you at all with a background. But,
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah, and then I see where you're coming from on that, and we're going to end up maybe having to learn the Dark Ages all over again. I don't want to
Right.
say like, don't hate me, YouTube. Don't come after me now.
Well, we're in a time of fantastic transition,
Yeah,
and that's I think where a lot of people who aren't aware of what's actually transpiring, they're afraid. They're wondering, especially with the current situation in the world. And I'm not going to get into the geopolitical situation this evening because it's more important to figure out where we are, where we came from, and where we're headed to.
yeah,
We have to look at the big picture on this. And one of the reasons that Maggie and I got together is the things that she was shown, I studied almost all my life. So it's kind of interesting when we look at, you listen to who the pundits are today, the people who everybody wants to hear, that they've got some insight into the scriptures, but they mess up in one really bad area. And that is, you got to take religion out of the Bible and you got to put science in. And so I started to learn the scriptures when I was 4.5 years old. By the time I was 5 years old, I had a pretty good comprehension of the Bible. But kind of what changed my life is that at 9 years old, I had a dream which actually came true. And when it happened, I ran home, and it was later on in the evening. And I ran home I was walking my dog. It was a trained guard dog. My dad had a business. It was my job to walk the dog. And exactly what I saw in my dream, I got to see with the dog when I was out walking him. And remember, I ran up and told my mom, Ma, I just had a dream that came true. And she said, oh, well, that's nice, honey. It's time for you to go to bed. And it was like, I just had the most incredible thing that ever happened in my life happen. And I got sent to bed, and was like, well, bam, they got the spiritual door got shut. And so I figured the only way to answer the question on how that was possible, that I got to see the future, was science. And I remember lamenting there in bed that, how did this happen to me? And I thought back at Samuel. I was only 9 years old at the time. I thought back at Samuel, and I thought, he was just a kid too. He was only 8 when all of a sudden he was being used to essentially minister to the high priest, oddly enough. And so what happened is I grew up with a Bible in one hand and a test tube in the other, literally. And around 1980, I put them both together and started looking for scientific answers to biblical questions. So I went and started restudying the Bible from a scientific viewpoint, and everything comes together. The biggest problem was that our science hasn't advanced far enough in order to comprehend the things that are written in the scriptures. And people say, well, the Bible's incomplete. There's only 66 books. Yeah, a little bit odd there, 66 books. It should be more. You would think at least 77 books. So we know it's incomplete, but the information that's in there is really all the information that we need to know and more to figure out where we are in the stream of things in which we live, and where we fit into all of that. And it's starting to dissect it up and then look at it as it's written in stone history. And an interesting point, when I realized this, it was like, okay, now we got to go back and re-examine everything from a different viewpoint. And that is the scripture in Genesis, the 2nd chapter, where God creates Adam and he breathes the breath of life to him, creates him out of the elements of the ground. Now, this is the only second direct creation that there is a record of within the scriptures. The first direct creation by Father Yahweh was Jesus, or Yeshua. And in his first form, he most biblical scholars believe he had the name Michael, which means who is like God, or essentially. And so the persons that we believe or look at as Jesus was what, like God. And Jesus himself said, if you see me, you've seen the Father. So they were not necessarily one and the same, but the Son was carrying out the Father's edicts. They both had the same thought. And we see that happening all the time between Father and Son. The Son picks up where the Father leaves off, so to speak. But so we're not God's firstborn. We're his secondborn, so to speak. And there's a direct creation. Now, here's where the key part comes in. It's observed that God says, well, it's not good for the man to be alone. I'm going to create a helper for him. So he has a sleep come over the man. He opens up the flesh. He removes a rib, and he closes the flesh, and he proceeds to build the rib into a woman, and he brings the woman before Adam, and Adam says, this is at last flesh of my flesh and bone of my bones. I'll call her woman because she came from man. Well, yeah, she's your clone. And there is the first record of genetic engineering. So now, bang. What happens if we look at the fossil record, which took billions of years to happen? So I'm sorry, hundreds of millions of years to happen. And what if we condense it down and say, well, let's say a genetic engineering in? Because genetic engineering would also explain the Cambrian period. Where Precambrian period, scientists say, well, somewhere between 1 and 3 billion years, we had nothing more than single cell life, extremophiles first, and then cyanobacteria. And by the end of the Precambrian period, there was basically nothing more than jellyfish. And then you get the Cambrian period where there was more life, more varieties of life on the planet than exists today. Where did all this DNA information come from? Well, we don't know. The oxygen levels got up to about 23%, and life just spontaneously exploded. It would be easier to explain to an Indian back in the 1600s that lived on Manhattan Island how all of a sudden New York City instantly appeared overnight than to explain the Cambrian period and where all the genetic information came from, unless we bring in an ET factor.
Mm-hmm.
So who are the ETs? And why does one ET think that he has a lock on planet Earth? You see, and by extraterrestrial, I'm just talking in general terms. In biblical terms, we would call them angels, fallen angels, satanic supporters. And it's interesting, if you listen to certain boards, that the term "it's going to be biblical" or "it is biblical" has been used over and over again. But you'll never get the true meaning of what is biblical by using religion to decipher what's written in the Bible, because religion can't agree on anything. There's over 40,000 different Christian sects. How do you divide up what Jesus said? Over 40,000 different ways. You can't. So you have to go back and look at a scientific method. And once you start putting science to the Bible, wow, it all becomes very clear. So the things that I've learned over the years, most of which Maggie got the Cliff Notes and was shown. So
well, but here's the thing. I was also shown that the Bible, there's a lot of stuff that's been changed and left out. It's not how it was originally put out.
It's a need-to-know book.
Yeah, I guess that's how I'd say it, right? And that's why, with all the religions that are out there, I think everybody got pieces of things. It's kind of like a puzzle, right? So, in my opinion, okay, like the Book of Enoch, there's a lot of truth in the Book of Enoch, but it was left out of the Bible. Why? Here's what I believe. I believe that there were books that were omitted and some things that were changed. I'll give you a perfect example of how I feel, okay? Back in the day when the Bible was transcribed, and it was like the telephone game, right? You got a cup, paper cup, another paper cup, 2 strings. You say one thing, repeat it to the next guy, repeat it to the next guy. How long is it going to take before all of that gets twisted and turned around, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are women in the Bible that weren't recognized simply because they were women. And I'm not a feminist, so please don't misunderstand me. Not that there's anything wrong with that if that's what you believe in, but me personally, I know Mary of Magdalene. She was a woman of title. She had stature. But yet in the Bible, women were kind of pushed off to the side, and women preached, right? Women did things that men did, and sometimes women did things differently or maybe a little better than men did, right? So, but back in the day, men were powerful, so it was all about the guys. But who did Jesus talk to when he first woke up? Came back, resurrected, right? It was a woman. It was a woman. So, I mean, there's a lot to that. And I feel I know, the Book of Enoch. And there are different books that have been left out that I think are really integral to our knowledge. Having touched on that, let me go a little bit further in saying that when I was talking to you earlier about how we're all able to heal ourselves and we all have these abilities, I believe that those are the parts that were omitted from the Bible, because I think that the guys that were in charge at the time wanted us all to be like this slave race, right? And they didn't want us to have this knowledge to know that we truly can do anything that we set our mind to. The mind is just so incredibly powerful. We were talking earlier, and Ronald, you talked to me about what you believed, and I'm not sure if it was commander status or what have you, but we all have abilities to be super powerful in our own right, and we all have abilities to heal ourselves. We all have abilities to help ourselves. I believe that we also all have the abilities to travel interdimensionally. I don't think that's something that was just given to what we believe, the fallen angels, right? So there's so much that's been left out and omitted, I think. And like I said, a lot of it is so that in these times we're relying on pharma and medications and whatever it is that the people in charge want us to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if we truly were able to recognize what our gifts were, and we could change things, we can change the weather, we can heal our bodies, we can do whatever it is that we'd like to.
But then if we could do all that, then we wouldn't need the medical doctors that that are here.
Funny how that works, huh? And I'm not saying, look, Western and Eastern medicine each has its place in society. I believe, me personally, I believe that should go hand in hand.
Yeah.
I mean, it's scientifically proven that if you think and change your mindset, say you have cancer and your mindset is positive and you believe that you can be healed and you visualize that tumor shrinking. And if you play certain music with certain hertzes in it, megahertzes or hertzes in it.
That's true. Yeah. That
right?
does work. Yeah.
And holistically speaking, there are things that you can put into your body or eradicate from your body that will help you to heal. So you don't always need that. However, break a bone, it's a lot easier to go to the doctor to get it set, right?
Yeah.
Until we have the capability to mentally be able to, fix a fissure or a fracture or what have you. So
we must be on a flat earth, because we got snow here and Andy's in the UK and he got snow at the same time. How is that possible? Anyway, that's a whole, sorry to derail the conversation, but I just
weather manipulation, and that stands for another show.
yeah. But no, I was going to say about the aliens. Now, you talked about aliens being fallen angels or demons, if you will. Now, I don't think so. Now, possibly some of them, I might agree with you, might be. Okay. But the thing about the aliens, okay, God could have created somebody on planet X somewhere else, because he's God.
What?
And for all the women in the group, yeah, God is a he. Don't get upset. That's what the Bible says. That's what we're going by. So don't get mad at me for that. You can get
No,
mad
I'll
at
go
the
with you on
writers.
that one.
Get mad at the writers for that. But anyway, so God could have created any kind of a race anywhere else out there. Okay. And I mean, if they were fallen angels, they wouldn't need a spaceship to get here. Let's think about that.
Okay, well, we can answer that. We
Okay.
can answer that.
All right.
First, we'll go back to science because we need to support this with something other than what some clergymen translated out of the Bible.
Right.
And this is where, I'll go back to Eve being genetically engineered. Well, we didn't learn about DNA until the mid 1950s. But look how far we've come with genetic engineering unofficially since then, right? So we can pretty much genetically engineer anything. We've taken the human genome apart and have learned a lot of things by it. But to find out where we are, we have to turn to science and go right to the base of everything is string theory. String theory was developed about 1999, actually, and there were several teams working on it, and they all came up with the same answer. And what string theory basically says is that all energy is made up of the same substance, which is a string. Now think of a string on a guitar. It plays a particular note when it's tuned in a certain fashion. So when you get down on the atomic level, what gives the atom its energy is that string that vibrates. Now, string theory has a couple of rules to it, a couple of laws, and it says that one of the things, it says everything started from one dimension and developed into the at least 10-dimensional multiverse in which we live today. Now, the first dimensions had to be the first 7 dimensions, 1 through 7. They are spatial planes. You don't get to the physical 3-dimensional world until you get to 8, 9, and 10. So those other 7 spatial planes had to come before the 3 physical planes. Now we say, oh, well, we live in the 3rd dimension and we got to ascend to the 4th and the 5th, and we're going to have, a complete soul and a complete life. Oh, no. It doesn't work that way. We are the pinnacle of creation in the physical form. Now, what abilities we have yet to fully comprehend. However, it would be ludicrous to think that life did not exist in those other 7 dimensions, because that's where it starts from.
Yeah.
This took years to do, and you need science in order to do it, and then you need the knowledge of scriptures. But finally, I got to the comprehensive answer of what or who is God. And here it is. The scriptures say that God is the Alpha and the Omega. And by the way, the name Yahweh, or in Old Hebrew, Yahuwah, means he who causes to become. So he who causes to become did not exist at one time, because it says that before me there was nothing, and after me there will be nothing. Now, we know by simple physics, you can neither create nor destroy energy. You can only change its form. So if we did not have any energy as we comprehend it today, the only thing that could have existed is one dimension of pure dynamic energy, most likely antimatter. Now, we have to make one small assumption. Because we are intelligent, we have to assume that this single dimension entity was intelligent as well. And it came up with a cool idea. It came up with one single idea. And John tells us in 1 John exactly the idea that this entity, this single dimension entity, came up with. It was the concept of love. The more you give, the better you feel. The more you get, the better you feel. But if you're all by yourself, well, wait a minute. You got to start creating other things in order to love, whether it's in a family matter, or whether Love. I love my car. I love my house. I love where I live. I love my wife. I love the puppies that we have. I love my grandchildren. I love so many things, and it works on so many different levels. So what do you have to do? Start creating. So the one dynamic, this one dimension of pure dynamic energy had to become at least 3 dimensions because, and we have the beginning of time here too, because something happened. The reason I say 3 dimensions is because you've got the original energy, and then you have that energy's creation, the sun. You can't put them both in the same place. You need another place for one of them to live. And then you have the creation of the other spatial planes. So you've got 7 spatial planes, which would be totally logical for other life forms to live. And based on the biblical record, these life forms had the ability to step out on Earth, just like you walked from one room to another. So, portals weren't needed, stargates weren't needed. It was, here we are, do what we got to do, and we leave. And so we have a perfect explanation of how life came to be on Earth. Genetic engineering. Look at the genetic varieties that we have just within flowers, trees. We're doing a pretty good job of trying to destroy all the genetic information on this planet now, but it wasn't that way to begin with. And so this all starts to come tying back together as to where we are now. Now, if we realize that, we're God's second born, or he who causes to become the second born, what powers do we have? Well, we lost most of our powers, and we can go back to Genesis for that. Most likely that fruit had a virus in it. When we ate it, it destroyed our DNA, and we started to die. And that happened from the very day of the eating of that fruit, because that virus was ingested, which started destroying our DNA. And there's genetic evidence for that. So, now we start with this serpent that did this, that deceived the woman, and the woman convinced the man, and neither one of them had perfect human DNA. Now it's so great. They were going to die. A couple of generations later, we could turn around and we can change the narrative, can't we?
Yeah.
Hasn't the history of the United States changed in our lifetime? Who's doing that?
I don't know.
You see, artificial intelligence, the AI. Oh, it's into the computers. Alien races are controlled by AI. Could that be satanic intelligence? Let's see. We're told in the scripture that even Jesus never denied that Satan didn't own all the kingdoms of the world when he tempted Jesus for an act of worship. I'll give you all these kingdoms. And we're told that he can even controls the air. Without the air, we couldn't transmit very many signals, could we?
Yeah.
So you need those the ionosphere and all that other good stuff to bounce signals off and be able to bounce signals from satellite to satellite and wherever they want to do that. But we send out broadcasts through the airwaves.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And now with the internet, this is going across the internet, of course, but the internet goes where? From this computer to the router to where?
Through the air.
Yeah, and then where it goes up to the satellite, right? And then back down to the antenna and back here. So people forget how that works, The satellite is up there traveling around planet Earth, and yet we're talking to everybody around the world. And then like the FM or AM and FM radio, it would only go so far, and it will only reach a local area. It wouldn't go all around the world. Now with the internet, though, you can have an FM radio station that's broadcasting all around the world. That, in my opinion, is pretty darn amazing.
Yeah,
and then,
but who's controlling it?
Well, we're controlling our little part. But after it gets out of our airspace, I don't think we're controlling it at that point. It's kind of like going on its own, and hopefully it gets to wherever it's going.
Absolutely. And people with ears will hear.
And see what I'm thinking of, like, in many years from now, when we're out in space, out by where the spacecraft Voyager and different. I guess Voyager would be the only two that are alive still, that are out there at the edge of the universe, at the edge of the solar system, rather, and they're actually broadcasting signals and sending stuff back to planet Earth even today. And they're how many years old?
Yeah, they went up when I was a kid.
And they're still running,
Yeah.
and so what's interesting is, uh, if we're sending our radio signal out, imagine someone's going to hear it out there. Okay, where's
Sure.
that coming from? Let's go see where that's coming from.
Well, you see, they already know, because if we go back now, here's an interesting thing, that there's been a record of aliens that go all the way back to the Sumerian texts, which is about as old as you're going to get, because that came up in Nimrod's time. And we have a complete history of all of the gods, because they could do things that we couldn't do anymore. And because our history gets changed, we realize that we are convinced that we are part of a prison planet. Well, yeah, it is a prison planet. Why? Revelation 12, war breaks out in heaven. The dragon and its angels do battle with Michael and his angels, but it does not prevail. And what happens? Down to the earth they are cast. Woe, woe, woe for the earth, for the devil, the original serpent, has been cast down to you with great anger, knowing he has a short period of time.
Yeah.
So when did this happen? You see, now wait a minute. We have an alien invasion. Down to the earth they were cast, and the dragon dragged a third of the stars with him. Powerful interdimensional entities that are now here on Earth. So these aren't your average run-of-the-mill insane demonic forces. These are very powerful interdimensional alien forces. Now, will they tell us who they are? Of course not.
You're right.
The only way that they could win this is if all of God's people are dead.
Right.
That ain't going to happen either. You see, those of us who wake up and take our personal power back and say, you have no power over me, then we take a stand and we absorb that spiritual power, that complete holiness, and do it in the name of Christ. We start becoming very, very dynamic and unstoppable. And not even a direct satanic attack against Job could change his faith. And he was blessed tremendously afterward, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So,
he got back double, I think, or whatever.
Yeah, this isn't just for planet Earth. This is for the future of the complete cosmos. That's what's in the balance here. And most people are concerned about, oh, what's happening over on the other side of the ocean? What's going on over in, certain parts of the world where other people are being attacked. Oddly enough, I wound up in that country in 2004, and I was told, with what you need to write a book. And it was 2004 where the first revolution broke out. Unbeknownst to me, I was going to Ukraine for a month, and everything was go. My tickets were bought. I was waiting for my visa and my passport. My contacts were expecting me, and a revolution broke out in Ukraine, specifically in Kiev, exactly where I was going. And it was totally peaceful.
Wow.
When I saw what happened in 2014, I was like, no, something's wrong here. But I have been to Kiev several times, and I'll tell you one thing. I think it was about 2007. I said, whoever has enough money could buy this country. Think about that.
Yeah.
That was 2007. It was that corrupt at that point that I said, whoever has enough money could buy this country.
Fast forward to today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
interesting.
now Putin owns it again.
Well, it is what it is. So
Mm.
That's another show, though, right?
that's
Oh
another
yeah.
show. You
Yeah.
want to talk about the King of the North occupying the King of the South in the last days?
Nah. We better not. We might get in trouble for that one.
Right. Exactly. We're on YouTube, so
But now
Yeah.
here's an interesting thing. What we are experiencing right now are two major prophecies within the Bible.
Mhm.
Revelation 3:9. I will make those from the synagogue of Satan who claim to be Jews and are not, but are lying, come before you, and they will do obeisance at your feet, because I shall show them how much I loved you. There's one. Revelation 17. You've heard the military is the only way forward lots of times. Guess what? Read Revelation 17, and it's the military, it's the beast that was, a government that was, but is not, but ascends out of the abyss and rules with 10 kings who do not have a kingdom yet, and their only focus is to destroy Babylon the Great.
Mm.
Yeah, now, let's see, a kingdom that was, but is not, and ascends out of the abyss. Sound like something that may be in the process of happening?
Yeah.
Yeah, a kingdom that was, well, yeah, we did have a sitting president and for 4 years, and it seems like, okay, that administration got thrown down an abyss. Is it coming back?
Maybe.
Are we going to see the end of the main control? And now, here's an interesting thing. Revelation 18, it starts off with this command. It says an angel flies in mid-heaven, got an ET involved, and says, get out of her, my people, if you do not want to share in her sins. It says, Babylon the Great has fallen. Get out of her, my people, if you do not want to share in her sins. What's God's people doing in Babylon the Great?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Every recognized religion by the government, that is a corporation. The Romans invented corporation, and the church perfected corporation. So, in fact, the Vatican is the mother of all corporations, both political, religious, or I said all, not just both, but all corporations, political, religious, and of course, business corporations, banking corporations. They're all owned by the mother of corporations. So, you see, there are things going on behind the scenes that we may not be recognizing.
Yeah, and we're not told everything either. We're never told everything.
No, but every once in a while, if you know what to look for, then every once in a while, all of a sudden, oh, there's another little piece of the puzzle. Because what they're telling now is 99% distraction and misinformation. I don't care who you listen to.
Yeah.
And you
I
get
agree with that.
1% truth.
Everything we see is a distraction.
Yeah.
The train derailment.
it's the Roman Colosseum.
Yeah. That
I
was
mean,
a long time
seriously.
ago. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, well, what's the deal with that? Keep them occupied, keep them fat, dumb, and happy, keep them on their video games and their YouTube or whatever, right?
You have to
It's the same deal.
You have to have good games.
It's the same deal.
Yeah.
Keep us distracted so we're not paying attention to what's really going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. And that's the biggest thing that I have as an issue is that, we're conditioned from very young little kids, for generations, not to like this guy, not to hate that, or to hate that guy, not to respect this religion. You have differences, right? Everybody has differences.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's part of who we are. We all have a right to believe and, to talk about whatever it is that we, believe in. Right? But what's the thing in society now? Don't like this guy. Don't like the green people. Don't like the purple people. Don't like the people who believe in this. Don't like the people who believe in that. It's the oldest trick in the book. Anybody study history? Divide and conquer, right?
Yeah.
So, regardless of what your belief structures are or mine are, if we all work together, right, and just kind of chill out a little bit and help each other and stand as one, we're undefeatable. We're undefeatable.
And then they're telling us, we can't do that. We got to stay at home. We got to stay in our houses, stay locked up in our houses, and be quiet and safe and be separated.
Yeah,
And
here's an interesting
That's
thing.
also because we're allowing that, though.
Yeah,
right.
It's time for that to stop. The issue is that society has been conditioned, and all of a sudden we just all had shock therapy, isolation, which causes a lot of problems all the way around. Drug use is up tremendously here in Maine, where we are. 1 in 9 people have an addiction problem, either to alcohol or drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, that's greater than 10%.
Yeah. Hey, Shadow, you've been resting a little bit. What's your thoughts on all this? You've been hearing us.
I'm just listening, man. I'm just listening to the conversation. I mean,
what do you do? Share with the people what you do. You were on Maureen's show last night, I think.
I'm. I wasn't talking about this topic.
No, you were talking about some of the shows you did. Some of the different.
I don't want to stop this topic from going on.
Oh, okay, good. Okay then. What do you think about this topic that we're talking about? What is your viewpoint as a filmmaker? What is your viewpoint?
I don't have a viewpoint as a filmmaker on this one. I mean,
okay.
People have different opinions based off, some people have their own agendas, and that's why they say what they say. And other people have, true beliefs based off what they've seen. So I don't, like the guy said before, there's so many different religions, even different parts of one religion is split up in many different parts. So, I mean, I don't have an answer, man, because I wasn't here in the beginning of time to be able to say what was actual. My beliefs are my beliefs, and your beliefs are your beliefs. But I can't, the guy says use science, but science doesn't explain a lot of stuff that was used in the Bible as well. So you could say use science, but I mean, then there's parts of science. I mean, parts of the Bible that have nothing to do with science. They're just stories that people, wrote, and they say they used, the word of God, but once man got a hold of that, you don't know what part of it is still the word of God or is just man putting his 2 cents in and having an agenda. I've always thought that religion was the first government because it, controlled what was going on in society to make sure that the human race survived. I needed things to be done. I'm the smart guy, but not the big guy. And the big guy, if I cross him incorrectly, he's going to pummel me. I got to get him to do the things I need because I'm not strong enough to do it. So I'll use an imaginary being to get that guy to do what I want. And then I can say, okay, if you don't do this, God's going to punish you. And the big guy's like, okay, go ahead and punish me. No, not while you're alive, when you die. And then because you don't know what goes on when you die, now and I'm not that bright as a big guy usually. Back in the day, big people weren't educated. They were just used as the machines they were. They all of a sudden were like, oh, I don't want anything to happen when I die, so I better listen to this guy. And he's the smarter guy because, that was the way that things used to be, that he must know more than I do. And then there you go. I mean, I don't know for a fact, but, that's just how I look at some of the reasons why we have religion. And then that became government. And now corporations have taken over government and have made that part of our living.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Here's a comment from Lady V. I'm going to show it on the screen. I don't know if you can read it. You should be able to read it. And can you read that?
You want me to read that?
Yeah, no, I'll answer it. You don't have to read it, but you can answer it.
Well, I don't know what she means by that. Would you be able to use the differences in films to emphasize the necessity to find common ground? I mean, if I want to tell a story, yeah. I mean, if I'm looking to tell a story, but not, I wouldn't use it as um my agenda, my soapbox. That's not what I do. I don't make films for that.
I gotcha. And as far as the whole afterlife and hell thing and punishment, like I don't really buy into that. I'll be honest with you. Um, I look at it more like you help people, you do good, you do what you can while you're here. I think that we were all made, whatever you believe, we're all made fallible. Nobody's infallible, right? We all make mistakes, we all learn, we grow, and that's why we're here. And we're here to help other people while we're here too. I do believe that. But as far as the whole hell and afterlife, and if you don't say your 10 Hail Marys or whatever, you're gonna go to hell. No, I don't buy that. I don't believe that.
Where we run into an issue with religion is where you have a blending of doctrine, and here's where you have to take a lot of unraveling in order to get to how this all got to be conglomerated into what people believe today. And very little of it has to do, almost none of it has to do with what's recorded in the scriptures. But you want to look for common ground. If you talk to some people today who have been researching this subject for quite some time, and that is one of aliens, and I had alien contact when I was 18. That's another show. Very interesting. So I kind of get to see this from both sides, so to speak. And it's not that there's a particular soapbox, but there's a theme that goes through the scriptures, and that is an extraterrestrial theme, and it's over the control of planet Earth. And some of the experts in this area today will tell you that there are bad ETs and good ETs, and that this is a battle for planet Earth. So wait a minute. What's happened since Genesis and this battle for not so much planet Earth, but control of the humans on planet Earth? And this, we see control right down to what we just went through with this in the past 2 years, and how many people were controlled into doing something that they may not have done without mandates that didn't make sense. You see, we allowed ourselves to be manipulated on a worldwide level, something that's never happened before in history. It's come close with the Spanish flu influenza of 1919. But it's always been for control. It's always control. And if you look at the 7 world powers who all worship these gods, Egypt was the first world power. They honored their gods. Then we have the Assyrians, the second world power. They honored their gods. It's always the gods. Well, wait a minute. Who are the gods today? Extraterrestrials? Those with advanced technologies? Those who could use their weapons as directed energy weapons, who have bargained that technology for human souls on Earth?
Mm-hmm.
I went down a rabbit hole. It was around 2011. It took exactly less than 24 hours. That rabbit hole was child sacrifice, and the fact that when they sacrifice a child, they do their best to separate the soul from the body, but not completely. And that energy is feasted on by extraterrestrials. It's known as loosh, and it's the most expensive drug in the universe.
YouTube.
Mm.
So it's an interesting situation, and it's one that has existed since Gobekli Tepe, where they have found all sorts of remains of children around this that isn't reported in the mainstream media. And when you look at the principalities that are controlling Earth, we're told to put on our complete suit of armor. Why? because of wicked spirits in unseen places and governmental authorities. So it's like, okay, what's going on here? Oh, well, we've got artificial intelligence that's controlling everything. It seems to be controlling the alien involvement with planet Earth. And these aren't my words. These are words that are coming from, quote, experts in the field. Okay, well, how does that involve us? Seems like our decisions are all made for us now. Listen to let's say the image of the wild beast, which is located over in Geneva, in Switzerland, where we're told that we're not going to eat meat, but we'll eat crickets. We'll own nothing and enjoy it. Huh. Gee, thanks. See any happy homeless people lately?
Homeless people are not usually happy.
Yeah, so there's the theme. It's a control for the minds and souls of the people of planet Earth that's been going on for, biblically speaking, for 6,000 years. And so here we are in a culmination of time and events where the hourglass is almost finished with its sand. And guess what? Revelation, you would have to agree that somewhere here in the last 100 years, we got aliens on a wholesale level. So, go back to the, here's another show on how to explain all this, because it actually starts with the Vril Society and the Thule Society, or Tool Society, which were both adopted into the Nazi SS. And they were originally used for summoning extraterrestrials through sacrifice of children. You can do the research on it. I did. And that started in the late 1800s. And so I don't know whether it's photoshopped or not, but there's a picture of Hitler shaking hands, or at least meeting little Greys. And then we get the stories of the Bell, the Glock, and Operation Paperclip, and all that, most of that technology being brought to the United States. Follow the money. Any way you follow it, there's an alien trademark on it, right down to our dollar bills with the eye looking at us.
Yeah, so they're watching us. They're watching us.
Of course they are. And so once you remove the religion from the scriptures and the parts that we don't understand, don't worry, they'll come in handy eventually. But the whole thing is basically a history of this cosmic conflict and a chosen people that the creator said, look, I want you separate from the rest of the world. I don't want you worshiping all these gods. Did they listen? No, they didn't listen. And so we have these major issues today. And who are the principalities? Well, Baal, Ashtoreth, and Molech. Ashtoreth is also portrayed as Baphomet. Part goat, part human, part female. Some parts male, I guess. I don't know. But a transgender thing. So
I was going to say, or a little bit of both. Yeah.
A little bit of everything, right down to the critter, So part human, part animal. You can be whatever you want today. I'll be a little kitty cat today. Tomorrow, I think I'll be a dog. And then on Wednesday, I'm gonna. The day after that, I'm gonna go chase myself around the yard. People have lost their minds here. I hate to say it, but that's what it comes down to.
Yep. All right. Wow, we covered a lot just in that hour.
Yeah, and we've only touched the tip of the iceberg. But I'll go back to what I wrote in Letters to Earth. I put it in a very succinct way that you can turn around and follow it, and comprehend all the things that we see going on today, especially with the banking system. I wrote about in Letters to Earth.
Yeah.
2009.
Yeah.
I got an email not long ago from a friend that said, "Boy, everything that you talked about has happened." Yeah,
Wow.
because when you comprehend where we came from and who is all involved, and you see who the players are today, the puzzle pieces all start to fit. And you see the guys that are springing up. Oh, I've been awake for 2 years. I've been awake for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
The awakeness in something I asked Maggie is like, what do you know about your family history? Because in 2018, I came across, it was in the beginning of March, I came across my family history. We helped start the first revolution, and that was the revolution against the church, which Martin Luther started in a little over it was 2017. That I found out it was at no actually was just over the 500th anniversary. It was March of 2018. But I found out that my ancestors were followers of Martin Luther, and they were one of several families who denounced the church and hid Luther while he translated the Bible from Latin into German. And for that, we paid a very dear price because the church was at war with my family for the next 200 years, actually 250 years, until Napoleon came on the scene, and finally that stopped. But it's interesting. I've got one relative who actually became the only documented white man to become an Indian chief, an American Indian chief. He was chief of the Oneana Nation, and he was actually an ambassador to the 7 tribes that inhabited New York State and Ontario, Canada, that area. And that was back in they came to this country to avoid religious persecution in the 1600s and established Fort Klingenschmidt in the 1700s. And this ancestor just happens his name is John Peter Klingenschmidt. So we see that the Peters have been always used throughout history. The name has been changed to protect the innocent, though. There's several different variants, but Klingenschmidt, Bellmaker, was the original name. So
Wow.
my branch shortened up to Kling. So it's a genetic history to be doing what I'm doing and to learn what I learned at the age that I did in order to carry this on. We do live in interesting times.
Yeah. I think that we were all trained, what I said earlier when we had our test run earlier, I mentioned, I believe we all do a job that we've been trained for a long time ago, maybe from the beginning even. It's something that we've been conditioned to do, no matter what it is. If it's restaurant work, custodian work, garbage man, whatever it is that we do, we've been trained to do that. Acting is communication skills, if you're in acting, which is Shadow's job, he does acting and stuff like that, directing and things. So he's been trained and conditioned to do that from day one. And while some people might not believe that or understand that, but that's true. I mean, you don't just wake up one day, oh, I'm going to be an actor or a director or a filmmaker or whatever. You have that conditioned in you, and you're programmed into that. And then, well, look, now you're doing it. What do you know? You like it, and it all works good, you know. And so there's other things, that throughout life you might do 2 or 3 different jobs, throughout your lifetime, which I have done, several different jobs. And so you do things to survive, to make sure you get food on the table. And you don't worry about, what the job is necessarily. You just do it. But, some jobs are fun, some jobs are good, some jobs are difficult, and some jobs you might not like, but they still are something that you need to do to get through, what you've been trained to do. Okay? If that makes any sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And now here's the curious thing. What job are we doing now? You see, we're all here
communi-
trying to enlighten each other.
we're communicating. We are
Yeah.
communicating.
And,
We
and
are
so,
sharing a message of whatever we need to share.
absolutely. And
Yeah,
so
I like
once we
that.
have, you can't cover that up, and we're all here sharing something in this very strange time period in which we live.
Yeah.
Now,
And then you talk about what we were talking about, how our signal goes out into space. Who knows who's going to hear what our conversation is? Many years from now, somebody's going to, oh, wow, that sounds interesting. And they're going to sit here for 2 hours and listen to it as it's going by. Maybe collecting it into their storage place on the ship, whatever, so they can hear it later. But the point of the matter is, they're going to be learning from it, whatever that might be, whatever it is for them. Each person is going to have a different something to learn. Okay.
Right.
So.
And that's what's cool about shows like this too, is like everybody brings something to the table.
Yeah.
And everybody, you know what I mean? And people will take away what they're going to take away from it. And so, you'll either learn or you'll absorb it and maybe think about it later and go, oh yeah, bell will go off. Well, that clicks with me. Right.
Yeah.
Or it's something that you inherently know inside of you,
And like if you do readings or counseling with anybody, whatever you want to call it, different people have different terms for it. When you help guide somebody with a message or training or whatever you're doing, you are sharing a part of yourself and your knowledge with them. And in hope, at least I hope that the reason for doing that, at least that's what my reason is that what we tell them will guide them to the next process, whatever that might be. Now, I'm not saying that our readings, or our spiritual counseling is going to change their medical status or anything like that. They're not going to stop seeing a doctor. I don't expect anyone to do that. And I expect them, hey, keep going to your doctor, keep doing your regular medical stuff you're doing. But if what I'm saying works along with that and helps you, then work with both. And then guess what? You're going to get healed, or you're going to get through whatever you're getting through. If it's a mental issue or whatever, you'll get through it because you'll be understanding more of what you're looking at. So I think that's important that we share what we know. And I know that there's a lot of times we might have messages that we can't tell somebody, right? But yet there's a way to get it out. There's always a way to get it out. And it could be in a show like this where we just say something random like this, and then all of a sudden, bam, somebody hears it later and says, oh, what you said helped me a lot, And so I think that's important that we keep that kind of thing alive. And even if they shut down the internet, for whatever reason. Oh, did I say that? I didn't say that. But anyway, even if that happens, and things go haywire and nothing works anymore, we can still communicate. Okay? What we got to learn is how to do it differently. That's the key. All right, we need to learn how to do it differently.
Well, you were talking about your gifts before, and I mean, telepathically.
Yeah, and so
there are ways to develop that, and that's a lot of people that are gifted have that.
And there are ways to do that, and there are ways to develop that.
Yep.
Some will take the time to learn, and some will say, "Oh, forget it."
Yeah, but it's something that we actually have the ability to do naturally.
Right.
When you have a connection with someone.
Yeah.
How many times have you thought about your grandma and picked up the phone when the phone rang and it was your grandma before we had caller ID and we had the old school rotary dial phones, right?
And now both my parents are passed now, and my grandma's been passed for quite a long time now, but we talk to them in a different way now, and they talk to us in a different way. I'm not saying it's anything weird and not anything odd. It's just natural. It's the way it is, and that's where I think where we get the Bible kind of wrong sometimes. The Bible says you die and then you wait for judgment. That's it. You're done. You die, you go to sleep, you're done. You wait till judgment day, and then you get put in one or the other two places that they choose, right? I think that there's something wrong with that because we're talking to something when people are doing the ghost research and spiritual, spirit research, whatever you want. I don't want to say ghost necessarily. When you say spirit research, like trying to communicate with the so-called past loved ones, or somebody who died, when you're trying to communicate with them, or they actually come through, like on a ghost box, you're using an electronic device, and all of a sudden their voice comes through, and it's like, wait a minute, is that who I think it is? Now it could be, but we don't know for sure who it is. However, if it is, then we got the Bible completely wrong.
Well,
Okay.
Here's part of where we have to separate doctrine from reality.
Yeah.
Because we've been told, if you don't do what the Bible tells you to do, you're going to burn in hell. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Where does it say that in the Bible? You see, the only place that it talks about any place hot is in Jesus' parable of the rich man and Lazarus, and neither one of them seemed to be sinners. The rich man Jesus didn't say was mean, nasty, and evil, and he didn't say that Lazarus was good, just that one was a rich man and the other was a beggar. Okay,
Yeah.
well, but let's take a look what the words actually are, because
Right.
the words commonly translated are Sheol and Gehenna.
Yeah.
Now, when it was translated into Greek, those words became Hades.
Oh.
Who's the god of Hades? Oh, what is Hades? Hades is a place that the Greeks believed you were tormented in. Now, it's interesting. The early church never taught about a hot hell. You see, Sheol and Gehenna, Gehenna was actually a garbage dump where criminal bodies were disposed of, along with the garbage from the city of Jerusalem. And Sheol was the common grave. So, but when it was translated into Greek, all of a sudden, the grave got hot because it was translated using the word Hades. Same thing with Yeshua, which doesn't translate into Jesus. Yeshua means salvation is in Yahweh, but Jesus is son of Zeus, right? So who are we talking about? Now the interesting thing is when hell became hot is when a preacher, probably after Dante's Inferno, but when the church started teaching that if you didn't listen, that you were going to burn in this fiery pit, it was like people going to a horror show, a horror movie, and it scared them, and so the attendance went up. And because the attendance went up, they were able to get more money from the people.
Oh, yeah.
And so hell became hotter and hotter, in a terrible place where you were going to burn if you sinned. Why did Solomon say that the dead are conscious of nothing? And why is it written in Genesis that Yahweh says, I shall ask back the soul from every living creature? From man himself, I shall ask back his soul. Didn't say anything about burning that soul. Didn't say anything about burning the body. Just that I want it back. Now, what's your soul? To the best of I've had what people call a near-death experience. It wasn't near about it. I was dead. And my soul was my consciousness and the energy in which my consciousness resided and that kept my body alive. The body's just a vessel. Without the soul in it, the body's nothing more than a hunk of meat. Sorry. Some of us have prettier bodies than others. Some of us put more mileage on our bodies. But it's still a vessel which our soul keeps alive. So, it's like, now how do you burn energy? Wait a minute.
Right.
But the actual judgment of the lake that burns with fire and sulfur, it indicates more complete destruction. from which there is no coming back. So if your soul is erased from history, boom, that's it. You're done. Over. You no longer exist, nor anything that you did ever existed. And so
Yeah.
it is a complete, if you burn a document with fire, if you burn anything with fire, what's left? Ash. You can never put it back together. It's done forever.
Yeah.
And so, but you don't make any money on that. The church can't sell that. But the church can say, hey, your soul's going to burn in hell forever. Well, that's what the Greeks believed. So let's just hand it to the Romans, and the Romans can teach it to the.
Yeah. And the confusing part about that is, if we have a God of love, how is that even possible?
Yes, indeed. And so, the scriptures say, well, God's a jealous God. Why is he a jealous God? We'll go back to the 10 Commandments. The first 5 were all about God. And what was the first one? You shall not have any other God before me. I'm all you need. Why do you need a bunch of different daddies? I'm your daddy. Basically, that's what he was saying. You are my people. You are my children. And so it's not a religious experience. It's retaking our personal power on who we actually are. People say, oh, well, we're not God's kids. Well, whose kids are you then? You see, you have a choice in this. And that's why this is a cosmic crossroads that we've arrived at. So, yeah.
Here's a comment from Julie, if you can read the screen there. What do you think of that?
Well, yeah, Julie wrote that the soul is energy. Yes, indeed, it is energy. At least that's what I experience, and it's conscious energy.
Yeah.
Oh, just like our Creator, conscious energy. Huh? Imagine that. So you can't really destroy the energy. You can only transform it one way or the other. But if we're conscious energy, what do you transform it into? Nothing. The only thing that you could do is reabsorb that energy. So it becomes like, it's like you take your glass of Kool-Aid and go down to the beach and throw it in the ocean. Does it color the ocean any different than what it is? No, it's just totally absorbed. Try to get it back out.
Interesting.
Yeah, you
like
see.
that.
So what I've found is that when things start becoming too complicated, it's usually not the right path. The truth is simple. How simple is love? Today there's just not enough of love in the world, and so we need to stimulate more in caring for each other. Mm-hmm. But we also have to be focused on the right things. So if you're gonna go down and not give up your religious doctrine, hey, that's up to you. If you feel comfortable with it, fine. My main goal is we're all children of the Creator. We all have the ability to create. What are we going to create? See, Jesus, when he was talking to the Pharisees, he says, you are from your father, the devil. That one was a killer when he came about. Yeah. Nothing changed. So we have to figure who's daddy, who's our father, and go from there. And that goes on a broad level. Do you want to align yourself with positivity, with love, with affection, with caring? Or do you want to align yourself with hatred and death and malfeasance? One preserves you, the other one eats you up from the inside. And fear is the biggest factor. If you can make somebody afraid, well, now you've got them. But wait a minute. When you're a little kid, the bully may have wanted to beat you up, but you ran back to daddy and, okay, bring it. My daddy's right behind me. Or my daddy can kick your daddy's butt. I'm sure we all had that conversation in the playground. Well, yeah. Go up against the satanic forces. My daddy can kick your daddy's butt.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to. But if we're not practicing while we're preaching, so to speak, if you don't have it seated at the heart level, you'll never be successful. And that's
And of
in
course,
everything that we do.
the interesting thing with that was with everyone picking fights with everyone. It's like, oh, he's such an angel. He's so sweet, such a nice kid. Never gets in trouble. Never does anything bad. You know, I know so many kids who got in so much trouble.
If you didn't get in trouble growing up, you weren't a kid. Come on now.
Yeah.
So that was back when kids were real kids. You know, we rode bikes without helmets and we jumped off of,
Oh yeah.
Great
Yeah,
set at the
jump-
park,
jumped off of the cliffs into the water, right? It's like,
Oh yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Back when we were young and maybe dumb in some cases.
dumb, but we lived our lives, didn't we?
Oh
Right?
yeah. Yeah.
Not so much now.
No. Now, well, I wouldn't. I wouldn't ride a two-wheel vehicle without a helmet nowadays.
I didn't ride one without one back in the day. So
Yeah, well, I rode a motorcycle without a helmet, and actually that particular day I went like 110 on a two-wheel motorcycle, and I didn't have a helmet, no helmet at all. But I didn't wreck it going that fast. I did wreck though going slower than that. I was going like 45, and I turned the street corner and hit some gravel. And
that'll do it.
down. I went down, and thankfully we had roll bars, sitting crash bars on the bike, so my legs didn't get broken. But man, I got skinned up, and my shoulder got out of whack, and had a piece of gravel in my head. Probably still have it there. And I learned after that: one, you don't disrespect a road. Number two, you always wear a helmet. So, and then thing is, I went to 110 two times after that in a car, and it was, I don't know why 110. I don't know why. It stops there when the speedometer goes faster, but I get scared after 110, and it's like, no, we gotta slow it down. And out where I was at in a country road, anything can come out at you, anything can happen. A tire can blow out, and you'd be in bad shape. So I learned from those experiences, though, and you don't need to do that.
Yeah, we all used to do interesting things, as Solomon said, time and unforeseen circumstances, like the gravel in the turn. That'll get you on two wheels, if anything will.
Yeah.
That and I went around a turn, and I forgot about the railroad tracks in the turn, and yeah, I got a good case of road rash going too fast. So.
Oh boy, yeah.
Yeah, it's I survived a lot of things. The interesting thing is I also had a glass jar in my pocket. I was taking over to a friend's house. The impact unscrewed the glass jar, but the jar never broke.
Yeah.
Talk about hit there before the grace of God go I.
No,
there's been a few experiences like that.
some of them are asking you about the book. Now, can you still get your book on
I already
Amazon?
put it up. I'm typing it now.
It actually, you would have to send me an email, and Maggie's writing that. So,
okay.
We're going to get it back into print. We ran into a lot of interesting situations here in the last few years, which were like, it's like being infiltrated.
Okay.
And so, you got to figure out who's on your side, who's not on your side, who's working for you, who's working against you. It's, kind of like when you're trying to do the right thing, and when you're over the target, you take a lot of flack.
Yeah. I can understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. Trust me, I've taken a lot of flack for being over the target several times, and so has Maggie. And, sometimes you just have to regroup. So
and even if you're telling the truth, Maggie, if you want me to put it in there, I don't know if it will let me. It should let me, because when I'm in there, you might be able to do it though. If you wanted to put the email there.
I'm doing it.
Yep, she's in the process of doing it in the chat room.
hopefully it'll work.
I'll tell you what we'll do. For anybody that's listening, I'm going to put my email in, and I'll send anybody that emails me and asks for a copy, a digital copy, an online copy. How about that?
There
That's
you
a
go.
special gift.
There you go. Oh, you just text me? Or,
No, I'm putting it in the chat.
okay. All right.
So look in the chat for it, and maybe
we're
we can
watching
put it in
We're
the
watching
comments
it.
below.
Yeah, so hopefully you'll get some interested people to want to get connected with that and learn what you're teaching.
Yeah,
And
I
again, that's getting your message out there, and that's important.
absolutely. And I don't subscribe to any religious doctrine whatsoever. It just gets clouded up. And
Yeah.
like I said, Revelation 18, get out of her, my people. Well, what are God's people doing in a corporation controlled by the Vatican?
Yeah.
So, this comes down to our own personal power, as I said, and our own spirituality. We're all spiritual people inside a physical body.
Yeah. And that's what our limitation is. The physical body causes limitations in what we can do.
It absolutely does. However, Maggie brought this up before. Books missing from the Bible or information left out. We've learned a lot about human science, the science of our own minds here in the last 50 years, and how we can actually use our minds in order to achieve our goals. I actually brought it down to a formula. The first one is your intention, the power of intention, fueled by your passion and motivated by love, will turn the fantasy into reality every time.
Mm-hmm.
What you intend to do. If you intend to make it the greatest movie ever, and you're passionate enough about it, and you're motivated by love, how do you not succeed?
That's interesting. I'm watching what Julie is writing there.
Yeah,
Human mind and influences. And I had a thought about. Okay. I had a thought about a phrase that I'm asleep. I was asleep, and in the middle of my sleep, which I don't get but 4 hours of sleep every day, and I take sleep medication. It's supposed to make me sleep 10 hours, but I only get to sleep 4 hours. And it don't matter when I take the medication. I can take the medication early, and I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning wondering what the heck to do, or I wake up, in the middle of the night, whatever time it is that I wake up. But it's like I got to be up all the rest of the time now because I can't go back to sleep. And so I take it at a certain time to sleep for 4 hours until like the sun comes up. Of course, now the sun's coming up a little earlier, and it's a little hard to time it, like I want to. But the point is that when I was asleep, I got this phrase in my head, and what you were just talking about, I had a phrase that I had that was cognitive reality. Now, that's not a real phrase. The real phrase on Wikipedia is cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance. I think, however you want to spell that. You gotta look that one up. But my phrase is cognitive reality. Funny thing is, when I typed it into Google, I got another thing about it said it was in a sentence that used the two words in a whole sentence, like cognitive and a bunch of words, and then reality is at the end of the word, at the end of the sentence. And it had 24 biases about reality, about the real, what's happening. And there were 24 different things that cause us to think differently than what we should be thinking. Okay? So that's where the term I come up with, cognitive reality. Our mind is adjusted and framed over time because of what we see, hear, smell, you know, whatever, see on TV, you know, whatever it is. And it changes variably depending on who we are. So,
Without a doubt, I like that term cognitive reality.
yeah, so think
You know,
about that when you write your next book. Think about that one.
it's interesting. We as humans, by the time we're about 20 months, we are imprinted in who we are, who we will be actually. And by the time we're 5 years old, 80% of our belief system has been installed. So think about that for a second. At 20 months, we're pretty much programmed to who we're going to be by the people around us or not around us.
Mhm.
And by 5 years old, 80% of our belief system is installed. So that tells me most of us are running around with infantile belief systems.
Yeah.
So we have to always examine what we believe and compare it to the reality so we can be cognizant of it.
Yeah. And I know for a fact that I have never been afraid to die. Okay. I don't care what the end is, but I know it's not the end. That's the key point right there. Okay. Now, if you think that the death is the end and there's nothing else after this life, then you might be afraid of it. If you're worried about nothing, meaning that when you die, you close your eyes, you go to sleep, you're dead, you're never waking up again, and then you're gonna be nothing, right? Zip, nothing, you're done. But that's not the case. Okay, we know for a fact from our research of spiritual ghost research, paranormal research with the spiritual reality or whatever. We know for a fact that there's something happening there that we don't understand. So there is something there that's available for us to learn. What we need to do is take it seriously and understand it and learn it and try to get as much as we can from it and build on that. And then when they tell us, "Oh, you're gonna die," what am I worried about that for? You know, who cares? I'm gonna live what I want, live the way I want to live, do what I want to do, and this stuff of having to be restricted to stay home or to stay in your area or whatever. That's a whole bunch of crap, you know. I think we still should have the freedom to go anywhere we want as long as we got the funding to go. Just go. Uh,
Well, isn't that part of our God-given right?
yeah, yeah, that's what the Constitution says, right?
Yeah, and so who took it away from us?
Um, I don't want to name names, but
Yeah,
anyway.
well, you don't have to, but there's the reality of the situation. So that puts us back to in times of dictators and kings.
Yeah, yeah, that's
You
true.
know,
I
it,
mean,
it,
we
it,
got away from England. No offense, anyone in England. Andy in the UK. No offense, guy. We got away from England now to be free of all that leadership, of all that so-called, you know, uh, leadership and telling us what to do, how we should live, or whatever like that. And here we're doing the same damn thing, even worse now. Okay.
Absolutely.
And
100%.
and I think it's wrong. And you got my email, Maggie, so you can send me that copy of that book too, and I can help share that as well.
Sure.
Uh,
Thank you.
and I can share that with anyone that asks on chat, or if they contact me later and say, "Hey, you got that book?" And then I can share it. And yeah, so that's cool. And but yeah, so I think. When you realize that it's not the end, as they are trying to tell us or teach us, then there's no more fear. Okay. And so when you see you might take certain risks after that though, and not realizing, oh, that hurts, like if you get stung by a scorpion, and then that's not too smart. Or you get bit by a black widow and then you get sick, really sick, and so you might die from it, or certain spiders, different things. And so you got to be careful with things that you challenge, but at the same time, don't be afraid to live, you know. Experience life as we have it here on earth now and enjoy what we have to enjoy and to travel to wherever we want to go, as long as we got the means to get there.
I absolutely agree. I mean, and that's part of the problem is, we've been conditioned, for
Yeah.
centuries to live in fear.
Yeah.
Fear this, fear that, fear the other. If you don't wear your mask and you do this, no.
And
I don't buy into that. I don't buy into that.
Yeah, and they showed on the news just the other night. They showed on the news about spring break coming up, and everybody's excited about traveling. And then they showed an airplane incident, and then somebody fighting on the airplane, causing a problem. Then there was also some kind of major accident. I can't remember where it was at, but somebody ran into somebody's car just out of pure jealousy of what kind of car they had, maybe. I don't know, but the point of the matter is, if you better kill me if you hit my car. You run into me, and you better kill me. Again, I'm not afraid to die, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, so if you don't kill me and I can get out and walk, you better watch out. you're gonna be hurting. If you hitting me didn't hurt you, you're gonna be hurting when I get done.
Well, yeah, and you can come from a spirit of love as much as you're able to, right? And you can help
Yeah.
people as much as you are, or as much as you can, but you don't have to be stupid either.
Right, and
so if somebody comes after you, you have the right to defend and protect yourself. Whether
exactly.
It be
That's all
physically
I'm
or
saying. Is
otherwise.
that I would protect myself in an accident,
Yep.
in a situation.
Spiritually, physically, or otherwise. And there are a lot of people out there that talk a good game, and they have big mouths, but most of them can't back it up, right?
Hopefully nobody will have an accident or get into trouble with anyone, and hopefully everyone will be safe whenever they travel, anywhere they travel. Hopefully they will be safe. I know a lot of people are going to some conferences that are happening now. Like you got the Roswell, New Mexico conference is happening right now, and there's a lot of people that I know that are there. I'm not there, but I'm in the middle of the snow and sitting here looking at the snow and wondering when is it going to stop. We got more snow coming tonight, and we got snow for like 6 months here. And that's real. We had snow in October. That's when it started. Actually, I think it was the end of September. Actually, this year or last year, the end of September is when we got our first snow, and then it didn't do much. But we did snow a little bit in October, and of course it snowed in November, and then of course December and January and February, of course, and then March. I don't know why we got so much damn snow. This is crazy.
Where are you exactly? What state?
I'm in Minnesota.
Minnesota. Okay.
Minnesota.
Yeah, the weather patterns are definitely unique the last couple of years too.
And where I'm at,
again, that's a whole different show also, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the southwest corner of the state, which is you got the South Dakota to the west, you have Iowa to the south, and you got Wisconsin on the far right of me, or on the far east of me, and then of course Canada north, So what happens is the way that the airflow goes, okay, because you got the south warm air coming up from the Georgia, Texas, Arizona, that area, and then it's coming up. And then it meets the cold air from Canada that's coming down. And what happens to Minnesota? we gets all the wind. We get all the wind, and we get tornadoes. We get snowstorms. We get, well, like I said, tornadoes when it's not snowing, and so it's just kind of weird. And it's not fair that we should have to put up with all that crap.
Well,
But we do.
eventually it'll all straighten out once this system.
When I'm dead, it'll straighten out. It'll be all better when I'm dead. That'll be when it's better.
It actually may not be that far away. We're gonna
Oh,
have to see how
no.
a lot of this.
Not your death.
No.
Clarify. You just scared him.
Not you
Don't say that.
passing. No, not you passing. The weather straightening back.
Oh,
out.
okay.
You see,
Okay.
we live at a very interesting time now where everybody on this planet has the opportunity to live indefinitely, but they have to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And you'll say, well, how is that possible? It's possible through getting our DNA repaired.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
The telomeres.
yeah, it's
Research telomeres scientifically, and
Yeah.
what they've discovered in the last couple of years, how our telomeres have been spliced. If you research it.
Mm-hmm.
you know that's something that's been added in. I sat down with a gal who just got her master's degree in genetic engineering and biochemistry, and I asked her, and this was in 2006, I believe, 2007, and it happened to be in Amsterdam. But I asked her if there was any way of telling if our telomeres were spliced on. And she thought about it for a minute and said, no, that there's no real way of telling, because I told her what my hypothesis was, and I'll share it with everybody in just a minute. However, in 2015, genetic engineers and researchers have come out and found that there appears to be a splice mark between our DNA and our telomeres. Now, what happens is every time the DNA replicates, we lose a set of telomeres, and when we run out of telomeres, our DNA no longer replicates properly, and we have organ failure and die.
Mm-hmm.
My hypothesis is that virus that was in that fruit back in the tree that you shouldn't eat from,
Yeah.
contained a telomere virus,
Mm.
and that originally our DNA looked like an infinity sign connected at the ends, which means every time that it would replicate perfectly and never unravel. But something happened to snip it, and then by controlling the length of the telomeres, you can control the length of the human lifespan.
Mm. Well, how do you explain the fact that we went from 35 years to, well, 80 years?
A lot of that is done based on average lifespan of the period of that time. So if you go back like to the medieval ages and say, okay, well, there were 100 million people, and we just had the bubonic plague, and it attacked people from infancy on up to 80 years old, and it killed a lot of kids. And so what's the average lifespan? There were a lot of things that could kill you, a lot of things that can still kill us today. Could you imagine if we didn't have hospitals?
Right.
A lot of us, me personally, be crippled and maimed. I would not have use of I would have probably bled to death quite some time ago.
Mm.
And if I would have survived it, I would have never had the use of my right hand anymore. But, we have hospitals now. So, you could have chalked my lifespan up to 45 years old. Boom, he's gone. But at the same time, I had an aunt, my great aunt lived to 101. So, unfortunately, we lost my youngest son. He was 26. Take that, and with my great aunt, the average lifespan would be about what? 50, 60 years old?
Yeah.
So there's your average lifespan. So, numbers can be manipulated quite easily.
Right.
And, people have
Well,
lived.
in the 1800s, you had people that wouldn't live very much past 30.
Yeah. And,
Right.
and they got some plague. They didn't have any antibiotics. Something I would do from time to time is go through very old graveyards, and you read the headstones, and they tell a story. You see the same names, and all. Half the family got wiped out. It's like, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And then right next to it, you see somebody who lived to be 100 years old.
Oh, yeah.
What happened?
Not sure. Well, here in this area, I know that we had a lot of children dying in the cemetery right next to my house. Well, half a mile up the road. And you have kids that were buried there. And at the time of their death, it was the Spanish-American War that occurred at the time. So I don't know how they depicted this up here. But anyway, uh, somehow they died for something during that time. And
Yeah, bad chest cold.
yeah,
We walk into a house now, most of us anyway, and the house is probably somewhere around 70 degrees.
yeah.
Well, you go back 100 years ago, or two, no, let's go back. How did the Indians stay alive in Minnesota?
I don't know that one. That's a
Yeah,
good question.
how did people stay alive in Alaska? Have winter for most of the year,
Yeah,
but yet people did it.
yeah. We have the historic, what we call the historic petroglyphs here in my town. All right, in my town or city, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, they're the rock drawings and or carvings are over 10,000 years old. Okay, they're like about 7 to 10,000, I think.
Now, here's a question: who did them? And the better question is, how tall were they, and how long did they live?
Okay, they were the native people that lived here at the time, which were whatever they were. I don't know what tribes they were here. Uh, they did the rock drawings or cave drawings, if you will. And of course, there wasn't caves here, but there was rocks. And I did a self tour one time when it was not open, but it wasn't. It was open, but it wasn't open. It was open for you to walk through, but you had to kind of like a self guide yourself, self tour. So I went through and looked at it and didn't know a thing of what it was talking about. but it was pretty cool though to see that. And then I saw some wagon imprints on the ground and grass and everything like that. And when I went back there in the daytime to ask about them, they said, "Oh yeah, that's where they'd stop the wagon and let the people off to uh, where whatever there was something there at the time, some kind of hotel or something at the time. It was a place for the stagecoach to let people off at the hotel or whatever was there at the moment. There was something there in that field, but it was all bare field now, except for the rock drawings and for those wagon wheel marks that are in the grass fill. Now I don't know why there'd still be wagon wheels in the grass after all these years, but they're still there.
I guess they were worn in pretty good.
Yeah, pretty interesting. When you think about it, how they, like crop circles, how do they stay there?
Well, now we're into a totally different
Oh,
subject.
that's a whole nother show. All right, we're gonna have you guys back then on that one. So there you go. Crop circles is our next topic. There you go.
Yeah, we live in very interesting times, and you see, you have to look at all the things that we can't explain, and then try to find explanations. And when we find those explanations, it's like, you do an Axum's razor, where you look for the most simplest explanation because it's usually the correct one.
And you do have cave drawings that are in caves all around, well, North and South Dakota. I'm sure there's cave drawings everywhere.
Sure.
And then you have, and those were mostly the Native Americans in that area, which I'm not sure of the tribes again. I don't know if it was Apache or if it was something else in this north area. So I'm not sure of the tribes that were here, the names of them. I wish I should look at that on the history and find out. Then I'll know more next time.
Well, the one thing is that we have to do our own research and everything that we're looking at, and we have to be suspicious because academia has controlled pretty much everything as far as what's accepted, and they just refuse to accept some things that are very obvious.
Yeah.
And I'm talking professionally speaking. With once you get into archaeology or geology, if it doesn't fit what academia says, you'll never get a paper published, and you'll never get your point across. You'll be looked at as a fool. However, the evidence all points to the fact that you're right, So it's like, so that's where we have to be very careful where we tread in these days, and very careful about what we listen to, and most of all, what we believe.
Right.
If it's centered in love and caring, then we can pretty much figure it might be good. If it's not,
and that's how I do look at things, and I do, like I said, I mentioned we didn't get into card readings tonight, but we will next time or at some other point. I do tarot card readings and things like that. I do it in a positive intention, a good intention type of setting, in a form. I don't do it to find. I do it to find information, not necessarily good or bad information, just to find information. And what's interesting is I get some interesting answers when I ask the right questions. Sometimes if I just randomly do a reading, then it has some weird answer to me. And then when I ask a real question, I do get real answers though, and that's interesting too. And so sometimes we might want to experience that and see how that works. So, but right now, I think we've gone 2 hours. Holy cow, guys. Everybody involved here and everybody in chat. Julie's going this week, so she's gone. I think some other people are getting ready to go too. But I think we need to call it a show. We did good our first time. Thank you for meeting you guys. Maggie, thank you for reaching out and asking about it. And
Well, thank you for hosting us. We really appreciate that. And it was nice to meet you, Shadow. Sorry you're having such a rough night, buddy.
I'm just sitting here listening to you guys.
He's been having fun dreaming about what we've been talking about.
There's enough there to make the next future best-selling movie.
There you go. That's it. And,
we live in strange times. It'll be a combination of a drama and a comedy.
Yeah, there you go. We were talking about, just real quick, UFOs. We had one here in northern Minnesota by a sheriff deputy. Do you remember that story? Here in Minnesota, you can look it up. It's still on there.
I've seen things, and so I've not been to Minnesota. I've been through Minnesota, but not spent a lot of time there. I mean, sightings are everywhere, right?
Yeah. I haven't seen anything officially that I can prove was a UFO, but anyway, I haven't seen anything officially. But in this case with the sheriff, the thing went through his car. You know, he had the old Ford LTD, cruiser car, and that thing, the thing went through the front window and out the back, and it destroyed the light, destroyed the headlight, destroyed the mirror, destroyed the something, whatever, and the deputy actually got a lot of kind of some burn or something on his skin from it.
Wow.
No telling what it was, why it caused damage to the car if it was just light, but it was more than just light, obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I actually saw the video, well, a documentary on that, if it's the same one.
Yeah.
It happened a number of years ago.
Yeah. 70.
Yep.
70 something, early 70s.
Yep, it is the same one. And they showed the car. They showed pictures of the car on the documentary.
Yeah, Crown Victoria or something like that. It was the type of car it was. It's an old deputy's car. What
Crown
they use
Victoria,
for-
they're nice cars. They move pretty fast too. I used to
Yeah.
street race, so
Yeah.
nice car.
So, but yeah, so it's an interesting case, and that car is actually in the museum here. If you ever come by, not here, but in northern Minnesota, and if you ever go by there and take a look at it and check it out, something I might need to do in the summertime and check it out and see what that's all about if they're open for tours again. And then they were open for tours for a little while. And the deputy was actually he did the History Channel documentary on it, and so I thought that was pretty cool. And I was like, hey, wait a minute, that's my state they're talking about. And then I don't see anything. Why don't I get to see anything? Come on now.
Well, if you come up and visit sometime, you can actually sit out on a clear night and just wait long enough. You'll start seeing them.
All right, we'll have to do that.
we do. As I saw a energy orb, probably very similar to what hit that sheriff's car, flash across the sky. It was getting dark, but it wasn't quite dark yet. The sun had already set. Went right across the sky and disappeared, vanished.
Well, now I saw orbs twice in my life that I can verify. And then we'll call it a night after I get done with this story. Once I was actually in the swamp in North Carolina. I lived in North Carolina for 9 years, and we used to go play in the swamp. It was like nothing then.
We're in North Carolina because Pete lived in North Carolina, and I've spent a lot of time down there as well.
I was in Kannapolis, North Carolina.
Oh my gosh, that's where my best friend lives. I just talked to her today. Kannapolis, seriously, just talked to her today. She lives in Kannapolis.
Yeah, and we used to go to the swamp, go swimming. We didn't really have very many places to go swimming, and so, but the thing is, I saw this green ball of light. It was green, and it was doing some strange maneuvers, not any kind of normal, regular weather conditions should be happening like this. This thing was in control of itself and doing what it wanted to do. And I told some people about it. Oh, that's a swamp gas, whatever. And yeah, it wasn't moving like swamp gas coming straight up out of the water or whatever. It was actually round shape or ball shape, sphere shape, and it was moving around, kind of weird flying around type shape, and it didn't have drone. This was in the 90s, like 93, 94, something like that. I don't know. But anyway, as I was watching that, then I saw this black snake that was swimming on the water, And there you have two kinds of black snakes in that area.
Yes, you do.
You got the cottonmouth, which will kill you, and then you got the regular black snake that's like the green, that's like gardener snake. It ain't gonna hurt you.
But they're giant. Yeah.
You can tell which ones are which if you are able to look at their mouth, right? but it's like, I'm not going to get that close. Because the cottonmouth will kill you. And you're in the middle of nowhere. You're in the swamp, right? There's no hospital next door. You can't go to the hospital real quick. And so if you get bit by a cottonmouth, you're going to die. All right? So that thing's swimming towards me, and I'm like, a few feet away from the shoreline. And so I start running that way. And I finally get to the shoreline and get out. And I'm lucky I didn't have any alligators to worry about at the time. None of them were around, but that black snake was enough to think about going in that water again. Tell me.
Yeah, they've got copperheads all through there too. My girlfriend finds them, like she's got a trash pail on her front little porch. It's like a concrete patio, and she's got nests with babies under there, and she's got an above ground swimming pool, and she's got to watch when she goes to the pool and check the pool out, make sure there's nothing swimming wrong in there.
Yeah.
And she's got little tiny dogs that she's got to worry about with the snakes too,
Yeah,
so.
and then
Beautiful place.
Here in my house, I saw an orange orb. Okay, now the colors mean something. All right, now colors are like, the color combinations are like the chakra labeling, like the different color chakras, All right. So now the orange orb is said to be like from Raphael, Angel Raphael, rather. All right, so what's interesting about this thing is that my friend Mike was visiting here, and he was upstairs, and he looked out the window and saw the same orb. That means I seen it, and he seen it at the same time. That means I did not imagine that orange orb. I didn't imagine it. He saw it.
Okay? You saw what you saw. Absolutely.
No, it was not dust. It was not a trick of the light. It was not an imaginary thing. It was a ball of light that was coming across the backyard, and it was moving in a strange way that I never saw anything. It wasn't a lightning bug or what we call lightning bugs, here. It was way bigger than that.
Funny you should say that, because my girlfriend who lives in Kannapolis, for about 2 weeks, they've been seeing outside her bedroom window. She's got, the way that her bedroom window is behind her bed.
Yeah.
And at the end of her bed, she's got a television set, and she saw a glare in her television set, and she looked out in the pasture behind her house, and there's been a strange light that's been there off and on for about 2 weeks. And her son lives right next door, and he works nights. He was going out to work, and he saw the light. He thought it was headlights, so he drove down into the pasture, and he said there was nothing there.
Wow.
But there are also, Kannapolis is getting kind of bad now. There's shootings and everything down there, if you're familiar with it at all. And
I got out of there.
Well, I'm actually thinking that it was a drone. I think it was a drone that she was seeing, that was kind of like scoping out houses, because they've been robbing a lot of houses in that area.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
But there's a lot of crazy stuff that goes on there, and there's a lot of legends too. A lot of hoodoo, witchcraft, a lot of stuff down there. It's a very cool place.
In that town, and then this is the last story, I promise, and then we'll go to sleep. All right. In that town, as I was delivering pizzas, I delivered pizzas for 9 years, 8.5 years. 6 months I had to wait for my license to clear for driving. But so, cause I moved from California. So, there's, back then it took 1991, I moved from California to North Carolina. I went from a $10 an hour job that they laid everybody off, right? And then I moved to North Carolina, where I had nothing. I had zero. All right. And I had no job, nothing. The Pizza Hut where I got a job at was not open yet. So I had to wait for it to open. Right. So I survived all that, though. Holy cow. Here I am. And anyway, I finally got the job at Pizza Hut. And I would start out as a cook because, I couldn't drive yet because I didn't get my license cleared to drive, So I got the license in North Carolina, but they had to verify my driving record in California, okay? How the law worked that way as a delivery driver, okay? Right. And I had to verify my record for so many months or whatever. but they had to go back to California, which meant they had to fax something there and then wait for the fax and wait. And it wasn't like you can pick up the phone or even, the computer or whatever like you can now. But anyway, I ended up cooking, and I had to ride my bicycle. I didn't have a vehicle. I had to ride my bicycle to work at 5:30 in the morning. All right, I lived 5 miles away from the store. I
Wow.
lived up on a hill, and I had to go down underneath the what they call the loop road there, and I was on Lane Street. I lived off of Lane Street, and what was interesting was we had a hailstorm in the middle of November. We had a hailstorm. It's where I'm riding my bike in hail, and no helmet, right? We didn't have helmets then. Who had helmets then? Come on now.
Nobody.
So I'm riding along in this hailstorm, and I'm getting hit by these rocks coming down from heaven. Like, what the hell is going on here? I had to go under the overpass, wait for it to stop hailing. But anyway, when I was delivering, after I did get to drive, and it was about 95. It had to be after 95 because I was driving my Nissan pickup. So it was after 95. Yeah. So I saw this giant black panther. You ever hear about that? Ever hear about the Black Panther?
Yep.
They come down from the Blue Ridge Mountains, which I used to go and visit frequently. And what's interesting is this giant black panther. Now, if you know what a Nissan pickup is, the old ones, the small ones, little 4-cylinder mini pickups, if you will, and you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And it was a 5-speed, but this cat was bigger than my truck. That's how big this black cat was.
Wow.
And this thing was huge. Now, I was going back to the store after making my delivery. This is after midnight or 1 o'clock, close to 1 o'clock, so we're about done. And I knew I could just get back to the store and close the shop up and then go home. But I went back the next day to see if I could see any tracks, on the side where I thought it crossed. There were no tracks where he crossed. There was nothing, no evidence. Now, what was that cat? Now, there were some stories that I heard afterwards about that and some kind of spirit thing. Now, along with that, I saw a kid riding a bicycle after 10 o'clock at night with no bicycle light when they shouldn't have been riding a bicycle at 10 o'clock at night. A kid, 6 or 7 or 8-year-old kid, whatever.
Right.
And riding his little trick bike or little dirt bike thing, pedal bike, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I went to go follow where he went, and there was nobody there.
There's a lot of you got to go back to the Trail of Tears in a lot of cases, but the history of North Carolina, and I lived in Cherokee, North Carolina, and when you start learning the history and how the people are, I have to believe that the Indians cursed the ground as they were being forced to leave.
And we're seeing the evidence of that.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of anomalies in the mountains. There's a tremendous amount.
Yeah, the Blue Ridge Mountains. It's beautiful, but man, it's a scary place.
It's gorgeous. But yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff that goes on down there. And
I'm sure Minnesota has its share, but in this case with the Blue Ridge Mountains and that whole thing, and of course, North Carolina is the first place where gold was discovered originally.
Yep.
Okay, not the 1849 gold rush in California. That was a whole nother separate thing. The gold rush or the gold in North Carolina was discovered before that. Okay.
That's why there was a mint in Charlotte.
Yep, there you go. Now the funny thing is, I lived there for 9 years, And I was not a gold prospector then. No, I didn't do that then. All right. I'm born and raised in California. Did I prospect for gold? No, I got the white crystal, right, white quartz rocks from the American River. I didn't bother prospecting for gold. No, I didn't do that. It was there. I didn't do that though. When do I start prospecting for gold? I wait till I move to Minnesota, where there is very little gold here. I mean, there's gold here, but it's like a different kind of gold, what they call flour gold, flake gold or flour gold. It's very small, and so if you have it, it's very small. It's already beat up and wore down, and it's gone almost. And it's not worth the time to start well, you can't use any engines here anyway in rivers, but not worth the time panning for it. So I drive anywhere from about 16 hours to Ohio to go prospecting in the river, but I do find gold every time I go. I know how to read the rivers. I know even where water isn't, where there's gold, in the desert and the different areas where gold could be. Okay, I know how to read the land. I know how to read the rivers. I know how to read where it is. All right, most people can't do that. I do that because I was trained from some of the best prospectors and geologists that know the area and know how to read it, and then they share their things that they know, and then that's again sharing the message, and learning. And
Right.
the Anunnaki love gold, and everyone better have their bit of gold, or you know what you're going to be doing. So Anunnaki, that's a whole nother show.
Yeah.
But well, thank you guys. I think we're about done. We went a little bit over even.
Thank you again, and it was nice to meet you both. And Shadow, thank you again. Sorry if we made your night a little longer than you wanted it to be.
No, it's all right. I mean, I'm like I said, I was listening to the whole conversation. I was just paying attention, and I might look like I was sleeping, but I was listening to everything.
Right.
Well, it was nice to meet you. Thank you.
You too,
Folks,
guys.
have a
You guys
great
have a
night.
good night.
Yeah,
for
you have
having
a wonderful evening.
You too.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
thank you, Pete and Maggie, and we'll talk to you next time. All right.
Okay,
Thank you,
sounds
Shadow.
good. We'll connect before Sunday too.
Oh
So,
yeah, definitely.
all right. Thank
All
you.
right. Good
Have
night.
a great night. Bye
Good
bye.
night. All right. Well, everybody, good night, and we'll see everyone on the next one. Have a great rest of your night. And hey, if you have nice weather, get out there and enjoy it. All right. Good night.